Penguin Random House Audio presents Jack Kemp, the Bleeding Heart Conservative Who Changed America by Morton Kondracke and Fred Barnes. This is Morton Kondracke. Introduction. Jack Kemp was the most important politician of the 20th century who was not president, certainly the most influential Republican. No one has yet written the story of his impact on America and the world. His life and legacy need to be recognized, and that's starting to happen. In this era of political bleakness, both Republicans and Democrats are citing him as a model of what politicians ought to be. That is one of the 4 reasons why we've written this book. Above all, Jack Kemp merits a prominent place in American political history because he was Congress's foremost advocate for supply-side economics and the man who steered Ronald Reagan toward adopting it. Hence, he deserves partial credit for not only pulling America out of the deep malaise of the 1970s, but also helping to win the Cold War and convert much of the world to democratic capitalism. The 1970s were a dismal decade. It was the era of stagflation, simultaneous high unemployment and soaring inflation, and also of geopolitical reverses. It was the post-Vietnam era when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, its Cuban allies advanced in Africa and Central America, and revolutionary Iran held Americans hostage for 444 days. And it was an era of bottomed-out national morale, its nadir when President Carter blamed the acquisitiveness of the American people for the country's seemingly incurable ills. In the 1980s, it all turned around. The misery index, unemployment plus inflation, fell from 23 in 1980 to 7.7 in 1986. The Soviet Empire retreated, tried to reform itself, and then collapsed. Among American citizens, satisfaction with the condition of the country rose from a low of 12% in July 1979 to 69% in June of 1986. And around the world, especially in Eastern Europe, but also in Latin America and Asia, democratic capitalism was deemed to be the end of history. Jack Kemp was at the center of the great turnaround. He did not invent supply-side economics, the combination of lower tax rates, particularly on individual income, and a stable dollar. That was the work of 2 young economists, Robert Mundell, later a Nobel Prize winner, and Arthur Laffer. But once converted by journalist agitator Jude Wanniski of the Wall Street Journal, Kemp became the leading political evangelist of the supply-side movement. Lowering tax rates, he argued, would create incentives for work, savings, and investment, and produce booming growth in a way that Keynesian public spending programs had not. His tax bill, Kemp-Roth, a 3-year, 30% across-the-board cut borrowed from John F. Kennedy's 1963 proposal, became the vehicle for the supply-side revolution. Kemp's enthusiasm for supply-side economics was contagious, and he spearheaded a national movement that amounted to both a political and intellectual revolution in economics. In Congress, senior Republicans resented the presumptuous backbencher, still in his 40s, who was treading on tax turf. They also doubted his economics. But junior Republicans, unhappy with their party's lack of vitality, joined Kemp's campaign. Among them, future Speaker Newt Gingrich and the future Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott, future Senators Connie Mack and Dan Coates, and longtime party leader Vin Weber. Kemp forged links with policy thinkers in Washington and New York, including Irving Kristol and Mundell, and Robert Bartley, editorial page editor of the Wall Street Journal. Kemp's office and living room became scenes resembling graduate seminars, where the Washington-New York nexus came together for debate, but with major policy change as its aim. That aim was achieved. Kemp-Roth became official party policy in 1978. Even GOP graybeards, who had previously scorned him, signed on. Then he recruited Ronald Reagan, who made Kemp's proposal a centerpiece of his 1980 presidential campaign and once elected the basis of Reaganomics. The Reagan tax cuts of 1981 and 1986, reducing the top rate from 70% to 50% and then 28%, set off an economic boom that lasted into the 2000s. The achievements.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?